Continuing on. So, Emer, the reason why we brought you on here is because everyone has a story. You either, grew up in the hood or
yes, the hood, yeah, Ballina.
or you got knocked down by a car a couple of years ago or something. Everyone, something happened to them, that was changed their life or whatever. Now, one thing that I wanted to know, and I'm just not educated enough, the concept of feminism. It's something that initially scared me as a man. It scared me, but not necessarily because of, the outcome of it or the motive behind it, but just I was just nearly afraid to be a man.
You're afraid to be a man?
I was afraid to be a man. And that's the exact...
And a feminist.
And I said this to a feminist, and I got the exact same reaction as you. Now, I'll tell you, how I've learned, further from that.
Right.
I've changed a bit. But I want to ask you anyway, would you call yourself a feminist?
Yeah, I would. I would identify very strongly as a feminist.
Excellent. That's what we want to hear.
Starting already.
Because what... Don't pipe down
God.
there. Because what happened if I got you on the show and you were like, no, I'm not a feminist? Because that's kind of why we brought you on. But anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so thank you very much that was the correct answer. Ding, ding, ding.
Woo!
So, Emer, I just want to know, what's the difference between a feminist and just an average female?
I'm not sure there's any difference, really.
Okay.
I mean, our lovely secretary, Deirdre, she's also a female. That's for anyone who doesn't know her.
Okay.
And we've had this conversation where she doesn't identify as a feminist. She identifies as an equalist, which I disagree with. Because the whole definition of feminism is that we just want the same rights for women and men.
Exactly.
The same.
Well, yeah, the same.
Not more or less, the same.
And that's a perfect segue into me kind of following up with my story, my initial story about saying, I was just afraid to be a man. And my lovely friend Lauren, who's going away in Erasmus next week, probably not listening in, she said to me, why would you be afraid to be a man? And emphasis on man. And I was like, what's wrong with being a man? And I got real paranoid. And then I kind of thought, you know what? I think the whole concept of feminism is to try and destroy these kind of stereotypes of it. Yeah. There's a man and there's a woman, all these stereotypes. And I kind of got it then. Is that kind of what it is?
Well, I really agree with that, actually, which is funny. Just the way that you phrase it there is that, I don't think people should be stuck in these gender roles. We were discussing in the pod how, people can, girls are doctors now and they can earn more than their boyfriend, or it's not the same as it was.
We were all like, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can sit at home and make sandwiches. But no, that's not a funny joke. But yeah, no, I mean, sure, look, my dad's the biggest feminist. He is surrounded by women. God bless his soul.
Okay.
But sorry.
Take that as you will.
Yeah. But I mean, as in, I feel like men should identify as feminists because it just says, I'm a nice lad and I think everyone should have the same rights as I do.
But can somebody kind of, agree with all that you're canvassing for?
Yeah.
Not to, I know we're in election season, so that's probably why it's on my head.
Yeah.
But, can you agree with it and not necessarily call yourself a feminist, or not necessarily say to everyone, you should think the way I think? Yeah,
no, you definitely can. And I think that's part of the problem is that the word feminism has very negative connotations, and people think, oh my god, she identifies as a feminist.
She's crazy.
I wouldn't put it on my Tinder profile, just saying. Emer, feminist, tea drinker from Mayo. No, but as in, it has negative connotations, so people think, because feminism sometimes can be, God bless them, they get a bit excited. They get a bit lads are awful. But in reality, yeah, it's not men's fault that they're in the
I think a lot of people just aren't educated on the concept.
Exactly,
and I am not claiming to be educated on the concept, nor am I, number one feminist fan here. I am quite neutral. So I want to know, did you just wake up one morning and think, you know what? I'm going to be a feminist. What was your motive like? Do you remember what kind of struck you, or was it something that kind of occurred naturally over time?
I've always been a very outspoken person, and I've always been very uncomfortable with, sexual harassment.
For sure.
Being grabbed in nightclubs or slapped on the ass.
Well, we'll delve into that a little bit later, definitely.
And then I also kind of wondered, when I was younger, I am a traditional woman in the sense that I like reading and cooking and baking. But I always wondered why no one pushed me toward, I was in honours maths, and up until Christmas and Leaving Cert, and the teacher was like, you should really drop down. And I was like, I'm not that bad at maths.
And you think that
I
was
felt like it was a
stereotypically
female.
driven?
Yeah, it was
Right.
You're a girl. Girls aren't good at maths. Get
down
there.
I understand.
Yeah, basically.
So you touched on there that you've had kind of bad experiences. Could you name one in particular that you thought was somebody taking advantage of your gender?
Oh, one. I was in Coppers. God bless you. Lovely venue. Fair play to Coppers. And I was wearing a skirt, not like a skirt I'm wearing today. And a lad I didn't know grabbed both my bum cheeks with both his hands.
And did he say anything with this? Was it just a silence?
He said something like, I would.
Oh, God.
And I was like...
Oh, Mother of Christ.
And you see, the worst thing is that I was with a group of friends who know what I'm like, and they were like, Emer, fucking leave it. Leave it.
Yeah.
Leave it. And I was like, turned around and I was like, what do you think you're doing? Yeah. But many the time have I left
And like
it.
the good thing about this is like you're talking about this as if it's a bit of a laugh, but it really isn't.
No,
like
it wasn't funny.
I'm
It
sure
wasn't
you
funny.
weren't laughing about it at the time.
See, the worst thing is that at the time, like, and this happens this happens every night out. Anytime I go out, I was on the train on Sunday. I was wearing jeans and a jumper and I had no makeup on. And I walked past like a table of 4 men around my dad's age and they were like, oh my God, the ass on your one. I was like, I look about 12, but would you settle?
Oh, God.
Yeah, but like, what do you say in that situation? But see, the worst thing is that happens to boys and people don't, like, a lad can't go back to his lad friends and be like, that girl, like, just like, I don't know, grab me inappropriately. Because the lads are like, oh, that's great, like, she wants you. And you're like, I feel really...
There you go. And this is my, that ties into how I feel about it, because from my reaction, when I see something like that, and you see it all the time, like, for example, there was this article on, I think it was the Daily Mirror or something like that, some website, and it was published on social media, and the motive of the article was that, let's just say a mature teacher was with a young male student, and the mature teacher was female. So there was a number of comments saying that this is ridiculous, this shouldn't happen, she should have got whatever in jail, blah, blah. We'll not talk about whatever, the whole justice system. But then there was a couple of comments from lads, oh, I wish I was him. Oh, God, why didn't he take advantage of that situation and all this stuff? Like, why is he complaining about this? I would. All this different comments, and I am just like, they just need just a solid punch in the face, because how are you supposed to have that kind of behaviour and be a good example to younger generations? Because you're going to have younger people, 14, 15, using Facebook, and you have these, and I'm not joking, some of them were 30s, in their 40s, and I was like, Christ of Almighty, you are just living your life backwards.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
because when you put yourself into the shoes of that particular story, you're a 14-year-old person, you're not 100% aware of all sexual acts, etc. Like, as in, if they were 14, I'm sure they wouldn't be encouraging it. That's all I'm saying.
I genuinely think that just everyone in general is over-sexualized. Like, from like the age of like 11 onwards, you're like projected like, you should be wearing this. Boys should be doing this. You should have done this already. Like, like when you're younger and they're like, oh, you're still a frigid. And you're like... I remember being 11 and like kissing someone and being like, this is the worst thing that ever
And it's
happened.
increasing because peer pressure, what you wear, everything is just becoming, totally out of proportion at the moment. And it's definitely something you need to do. But for me, when I do see these posts, and initially, some of them are quite forceful. I'm not going to lie. Like, some of them are, and I'm sure, I'm not saying that, all feminists agree with the way all feminists approach stuff, because obviously you're going to have a couple of outliers that that aren't really giving them a good name. It is great that people are speaking up about it. It is something that is, an issue in society. But do you not think yourself, Emer, that like racism, like, the way how, black rights has really progressed over the years, that it's something that will happen like as a natural movement, and say 30, 40 years, that it won't be as much of an issue?
Oh, I do. And I really hope so. I hope that when I have a daughter, that she doesn't come home and is like, this boy said this inappropriate thing to me. Because in reality, we're all just people. And I also think, like, going in on the whole lad culture thing, that, again, what you're saying about Facebook, when people write, like, obnoxious posts, and they're like, all lads are, insert expletive, and you're like, I know for a fact that you could name at least 5 male friends who aren't horrible people, and maybe it's the lad culture thing, like, anyone, when they have a few drinks in them. I have often objectified a lad. Good looking lad walk past, I'm like, Jesus.
You would.
You would, though.
You would, yeah.
Many the time I've done, and like, it's not you, and like, it's offensive. Like, it is, there's no harm in it, in the fact that I'm sure that lad didn't hear me But and everyone has their own thoughts and whatever. But like, I think it's just you have to, in certain situations, think about it. Like, if I was in that person's shoes,
I was about to say that.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. I was waiting for a bus in O'Connell Street, and a girl walked down the street with like something revealing. Anyway, I'm attracted to females. That's all I'm going to say. And I had a look. I was like, okay,
That's perfectly
appreciate it.
natural.
Didn't
Don't say
grab
anything.
Didn't say anything.
it.
I just had a look. But I kind of noticed other people were having a look, and I was realizing, how would that feel like to be a girl? To know that you're wearing something that will attract attention, and especially if you're vulnerable and you're not, overly confident or whatever. Like, I don't know, it's just something that, if you put yourself in their shoes, you can really think of stuff differently. Now,
it can be confusing as well, because people say, why are you wearing that tight dress, that low top, if you don't want people to look? And you're like, well, I like how I look. So, I mean, you just don't want people to like fucking
I know.
molest
Yeah.
you.
No, I know what you mean. And when the way I gave the earlier point that it's a natural movement and that it will possibly over time it will improve, but I guess you can't really have that without strong figures or people speaking out about it, because hey, who's to think that racism will have progressed without Martin Luther King Jr. Without those type of people. What sort of characters at the moment do you think are leading kind of the movement? Is there anybody that you would identify yourself as saying, I respect that person, they're speaking for what I believe in?
I really respect Jennifer Lawrence. She
Okay.
kind of like speaks out, but not in. I feel like a lot of people use humor as a way of like deflecting. So, and I've done it. Like, if someone makes like an unsavory comment towards you, and you laugh and you're like, oh, this is so funny, ha ha ha. But inside you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Which like, and it's fine. And like, obviously, humor deflects situation. If you're in a nightclub and some lad like shouts at you, you're not gonna turn around with all his like 20 lad friends and be like, excuse me, would you like to
Say
come
that
over
to
here
my
and say that to my face, sir? But yeah,
Good.
I tell you, get a bit closer, love. And you're like, no, go away.
Hey, that's more like the whole like case. Boys will be boys.
I hate that.
So they'll learn just to be like rude and just kind of like just say it all their lives.
But I made a really angry tweet, and
Okay.
Thomas O'Mahony retweeted, and I was like, sorry, I mean Belfield FM, under the guise of Belfield FM.
Okay.
But it was basically just like that every boy out there has a mother. They probably have a sister. They probably have female friends.
Yeah.
And they love these people in their lives, and they don't want those people to feel uncomfortable. So there you go. Just be a sound lad, a sound person.
There you go. And I'm kind of changing. Dermot, what's your feelings now? Are you kind of more educated on this topic? Because I probably didn't know an awful lot about it before we had Emer on.
No, I'm still about the same, really.
There was like, love fucking bitches.
Emer, don't take that personally, because that's just Dermot.
me,
Like, that
I
really
know,
is.
I'm kind of fangirling here, I'll be honest.
Big Loose Men fan. Speaking of Loose Men, we actually didn't bring it up last week. Semester 1, a couple of people listened to us. Would you believe?
A couple.
Yeah.
A few.
A few, more than our mams.
More than our mams and our women's.
It could have been just our mams. And ma'am, I'd like to thank you for refreshing the stream 160 times during the show, like we had agreed. I will transfer that money into your account later. But I just want to touch on a couple of things. Obviously, UC 200 was the big thing that blew up over the weekend and over the week. I was at SU Council on Monday. It went on for 2.5 hours. I only was there for 40 minutes because I had prior commitments. But the two newspapers were there. And speaking of the newspaper, so I'm sure we'll hear whatever they have to say in the paper next week. The College Tribune was the one that originally came out with the article. 200 people in Facebook chat sharing and rating photos of girls. Now, they were directed towards the ag science constituency in UCD. It just gave kind of a detailed account of what was happening. It was written by Jack Power. What was your take on the article? Was it something that surprised you, or probably not, given the fact that the ag science faculty have a bit of a reputation?
I wasn't surprised. I was shocked. I was at home and I was like reading, like, on Facebook scrolling away, and like it came up and I was kind of like shocked. And then I read it, and like because sometimes this sounds awful because like the college paper is like really reputable, but I was kind of like, oh, it's a college paper. Like, where are they getting this information
B-level
from?
story type thing.
I was like, where are they getting this information from? Then it was shared by like Joe.ie, her.ie. It was like on the Irish Times within 2 hours. I was like, okay, so this is the thing. And I kind of just felt really sorry, because I think a lot of people, when they read the article, maybe they wouldn't ultimately think, but like that's affected women's lives. Like, if you had sexual intercourse, if you had, a bit of the bands, maybe like a casual flirtation, just random sexual times with some boy, and he took a photo of you, and at the time you were like, ha ha, stop, delete it, and they were like, yeah, I did, and then they actually shared it with 200 people you don't know.
And it goes back to the points both of us made, is if you put yourself in their shoes, I would be absolutely mortified. If I put myself in the shoes, not of the victim, but of the guy actually taking the photo, okay, first and foremost, it's going to take a lot of effort to get, a good quality, clean photo of that girl, because... Number one, there's going to be maybe a duvet involved, or there's going to be, whatever.
Johnny's thought this through.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think logically,
6,
like,
how many pixels?
but I'm just trying to outline. I'm just trying to outline the effort. Number two, it's probably a dark room. You're going to have to get a flash on that. They're going to know that you're taking that photo. I wouldn't, like, if it was a selfie and there was two people in bed and the duvet was up to their necks and, whatever, after sex selfie, which became a bit of a phenomenon a couple of years ago. I wouldn't feel as offended. But the fact that they're going to all this trouble of, channeling their inner photographer and, going to the effort of taking this photo, and as well, 200 people, you'd want to be stupid in the head to think that that's not going to end badly. Because if you had...
I think, like, it's not, like, this isn't just an ag phenomenon. There's, like, loads of group chats where, like, lads...
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm in, like, it was, like, in a class group chat. It's not as active anymore. And someone had pictures of, I won't say the name, but a current rugby player's girlfriend.
Yeah.
His friend of a friend went out with her, and he had naked pics. So that got sent all around. So, like, it's not just, like, I know it's like people, it's a UCD lad culture. It's just a lad culture in general.
I agree. And it doesn't give, whoever did whatever they did, they must realise now how much they're giving UCD a bad name and ag science. And I agree with you, Dermot. I don't think it's an ag science, simple thing, because I wouldn't mind as much if this was, say, 2 or 3 of your best friends. I still don't condone sending, fully fledged naked pics of your partner, because I think it's a little bit weird, first and foremost. But just the magnitude of it, it nearly seems a bit boastful. It's like, oh, look at me, I've just slept with this girl, blah, 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 200 people, look at how cool I am sending this photo. Like, cop the flip on. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm still not convinced it's actually real.
There's no evidence.
There's very little
There's
evidence.
no screenshots.
Yeah.
There would be screenshots.
It was started as a thing on Yik Yak. I think that's it.
And I don't want these girls' bodies to be exposed via screenshots, but at least it would give people a certain amount of clarity about what's actually was going on, because what it leads people to read when they read these articles, they think the worst thing possible. When I read it, I thought, oh my god, some girl now that they like brought back, she's passed out, they've taken a photo of her naked, they're like rating her, they're calling her a slut. It could be what you were saying, where like they finally got the girl they fancied. She's unreal looking. They're in the bed, they've the duvet on, you can't see anything, it's just her face, and they're like, got the right.
Exactly, there's a way you can do it.
Which is like,
and she could be like smiling, like, it's all a bit of banter.
Which is like, as bad. Yeah. And like, it's funny, one of my friends is from Monaghan, and she has a notorious reputation for shifting ags. And she's like, well, on night out, I'm like, there's no ags here. You're not going to get to shift tonight, love. But yeah. No, but as in, I know a lot of ags, because I'm from the country. No, I feel like country people just like mold together. And they're not bad lads. Like, it is just a lad culture thing. And also, I don't know why UCD have only put in consent classes for ag science students.
That's a little bit ridiculous.
And women should get consent classes as well. Yeah. Because
everyone,
when, like, you could be, not everyone. Everyone is. Oh, Francis Roach is like, excuse me.
That's what we have for world news. He's just a news kind of...
his head is full of knowledge.
Whatever.
When did that happen, though? Because I didn't get any email about getting a consent class. I'd love a consent class.
I didn't get it.
Well, like, I guess that's a discussion for another day. There was one other point. There's so many good points and I've just forgotten them all.
Sorry.
But there was one other thing I wanted to say, and I don't agree with it being, based around ags, because like you said, Emer, everyone knows a couple of ags. Everyone knows a couple of ags that are involved in UCD, and everyone has a couple of friends. And I know a load of people who hang around with ags and they're not in ag science. So for people to, come up with this perception, oh yes, it's predominantly made up of ag science students. It could be 4 ag science students and their 100 friends who know them. It's not just the fact they're ag science. And another point as well, another point as well is the SU are always get a bad rap when anything bad happens in the college. And I'll just say this, okay? I've been in the college, this is my third year in UCD, and that SU team, that sabbatical team, and the officers are by far the best ones, you know, we've ever had in UCD so far. And if you're trying to encourage people to run next year and years after, and people are hurling abuse at stuff, you know, that they're not involved in, and they've actually reacted to it, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. The way people should approach this is not by hurling abuse at the SU, but actually call into their offices. Don't type behind a keyboard and expect something to change.
It was the open letter that went around.
Call into their offices and make a change with them in person. You know, you're not going to make a change by just, you know, channeling what you think and not actually going in and discussing it with the powers that be. You were saying, Dermot, sorry.
There was that open letter going around saying that, oh, they've done all this great stuff, but why don't they do all this more great stuff?
It was, that was way too harsh.
Basically belittling the fact that they had raised so much money for suicide prevention. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, the biggest killer of young people in Ireland? No?
And there's two approaches to that. That was an anonymous letter, and then there was a letter written by the lovely, was it Rachel O'Neill?
Yeah, I think so.
Rachel O'Neill, who has gone on all national media. She's a very positive figure to speak out about it. That's the way you should approach it. Don't, belittle the people because, they were belittling Cian Byrne, Campaigns and Communications Officer, a lovely lad. He has done his utmost best for campaigns and communications in UCD. Like the Youth Suicide Prevention Ireland, they've raised so much money for that, and that's going to go, you know, a long, long way.
And I think it has to be said as well is that when you're elected to a position like that, you're not like a head of PR. You haven't been trained in this. When this story blew up and people said, "Oh, Marcus O'Halloran waited 72 hours to comment," and you're like, Marcus O'Halloran, like how would he know how to react in that situation? Like, I'm not involved in this group chat. What do I do? He had his own controversy. If he commented and said something wrong, then it would build even bigger. So
I know, and I do feel sorry for Marcus in a way. I know he was involved in some stuff that maybe he shouldn't have been, but you know, people have been targeting him specifically because of what what faculty has been involved in.
And I also kind of feel like there's a certain amount of, I don't know. Usually, the SU president is a lawyer. They're doing business. They're from Dublin. They're affluent. Like, I'm not saying he could be all these things and more, but there's a certain amount of snobbery, the fact that we elected an AG SU president.
Yeah, and some people can't get over that.
I remember during the whole campaign, there was loads of these like smear campaigns on him, that way more than I've ever seen. It was ridiculous. Literally in every group page is like, oh, I literally just got attacked by his campaigners and stuff like that. I'd be like, that didn't happen. Shut up.
I know. Yeah, and I know Marcus not extremely well, but I know people that know him very well, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. I mean, if people publish articles, bad about the SU, it's going to upset him, and it has in the past. So, I honestly think if you're trying
when he got elected, he was crying. I was like, oh, I love you. You're great.
Look, I guess it's coming up with 35 minutes through the show, and we've just talked about that.
Yeah,
so.
I think we need to move on.
If you would like to find us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/loosemen. We are now also on Twitter @loosemen_. If you want to contact us during the show, you can contact us via the Contact the Studio tab on the homepage of the BelfieldFM.ie website.